This is you. 3 words that destroyed everything. I watched a 3-year-old girl add me to her family drawing in purple crayon, and my carefully constructed walls crumbled. She looked up at me with those trusting eyes and asked, "Can you stay in my family?" The sound of glass shattering in the kitchen told me he'd heard it too. You're probably wondering how I got here. Kneeling on a living room floor covered in crayons, being claimed by a child who wasn't mine, while her father stood frozen in the doorway, staring at us like we just changed his entire world. It started 3 weeks ago with a text message at 2:47 a.m. from a man I thought I'd never see again.
Nothing in this world prepares you for a 2:47 text from a mistake you made 4 years ago. I'm talking about the kind of mistake that was supposed to stay buried under vodka and bad decisions. The kind you don't save in your contacts because remembering just annoys you and hurts too much. But when I saw those words glowing on my screen, "I need your help. It's about my daughter. Please." I knew my perfectly organized life was about to fall apart. My name is Zara, and this is how I became a mother to a child who wasn't mine, fell in love with a man I was supposed to forget, and learned that sometimes the biggest lies lead to the most beautiful truths. Before we dive in, please do something for me. Drop your location in the comments. I read everyone, and it amazes me how far these stories travel. While you're there, please tap that like button and subscribe. New videos drop every week, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. So yeah, take 3 seconds. Like, subscribe, drop your city below. Now, let's get into this. I stared at my phone, heart pounding like it wanted to escape my chest. The number wasn't saved, but I knew it. God help me. Even after 4 years of trying to forget, I knew it. Kunle. We'd met at a club in Lekki during my darkest hour, fresh from a breakup that had shattered me, drowning my sorrows at a friend's birthday party. He'd been charming, devastatingly handsome, and most importantly, leaving Nigeria the next day for a job abroad. Perfect for a night I could pretend never happened. Except I never forgot. My thumb hovered over the delete button. 4 years. Why now? Why me? Another message pinged. I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate. Can we meet? Tomorrow, please, Zara. I should have said no, should have blocked the number and protected my peace. But something in those words, the rawness, the fear, made my fingers betray me. Okay. I didn't sleep that night. The cafe in Victoria Island was too bright for the conversation we were about to have. I arrived 15 minutes early because punctuality was my armor, and I had a feeling I would need every defense I could muster. When Kule walked in, my breath caught in my throat. He looked different. The easy confidence he'd carried 4 years ago had been replaced by something heavier. Exhaustion carved into the lines around his eyes. His expensive shirt wrinkled like he slept in it. He'd lost weight. Whatever had brought him to my inbox at 2 a.m. had been eating him alive. Kunle, my name cracked in his throat. I gestured to the seat across from me, suddenly unable to find my voice. Up close, I could see the desperation radiating off him like heat from Lagos asphalt. He sat down heavily, ran both hands over his face, and when he looked at me again, his eyes were wet with unshed tears. "Thank you for coming. I didn't think you would." I said it was about your daughter. I kept my voice steady, professional. "I didn't know you had a daughter." "Her name is Kemi. She's 3.5. With shaking hands, he pulled out his phone and showed me a picture of the most beautiful little girl I'd ever seen. His eyes, a smile that could light up Lagos, hair in 2 puffs with butterfly clips. My stomach dropped. I still don't understand what this has to do with me. There's a custody hearing in 3 weeks. The words tumbled out faster now, desperate. Folake has lawyers, money, connections. She's telling the court I'm unstable, irresponsible, that I can't provide a proper home. But the worst part, his voice broke completely. She's saying I'm emotionally unavailable, that I can't maintain relationships, that Kemi needs a stable home with 2 parents, and I'm just alone. The word hung between us like smoke. My heart started racing because I suddenly knew exactly where this was going, and it was insane. "Kunle, I need someone to come to that hearing with me." He leaned forward and I could smell his cologne, different from 4 years ago, but it still made something in my stomach flip. "There has to be another way, Kunle. Someone actually in your life, your family, your friends, somebody you can trust. They all think I'm reckless and irresponsible. My family and even her man never wanted me to marry Folai, so I've unutterly stamped it. And friends are all as embarrassed as me. Please, tell me I can't count on you this time. I didn't want to miss Tako's duty. He always talks too much about other statistics and duty documents. Folake is planning to sabotage the petition. She knows I will lose the petition because of my emotional and mental instability. But I want to fight it all. So please, don't come with me at the hearing. I'm begging you. The choice of begging triggered me. This is not about legal battles with lawyers. This is about fighting for that little girl. And I knew a bit about the feeling of being a ray in her life. There it was, the cliff edge. You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend? I'm asking you to help me keep my daughter. A tear slid down his cheek and he bothered not wiping it away. Just 3 weeks. Just show up at the hearing, hold my hand, smile at the judge, tell them we're together, we're stable, we're planning a future. That's all. After that, you walk away, I'll never contact you again. Every rational part of my brain screamed, no, this was fraud, this was insane. This was a man I slept with once 4 years ago, asking me to lie to a court. But then I thought about my own childhood, my father leaving when I was 5, the custody battles my mother fought alone, growing up feeling like a prize to be won instead of a person to be loved. I thought about that little girl in the photo, caught in adult wars she didn't understand. Tell me about her, I heard myself say. Kunle's face transformed like someone had turned on a light inside him. For the next hour, he talked about Kemi, how she loved drawing butterflies, sang Disney songs off-key in the bath, how she had started asking why mommy and daddy didn't live together anymore. He showed me videos. Kemi teaching him a dance, Kemi reading upside down, Kemi asleep on his chest while he worked. And somewhere in that hour, watching this broken man fight for the child he loved more than breathing, I made a decision that would unravel my entire life. Okay, I whispered. I'll do it. The relief on his face was so profound it hurt to witness. But I have conditions, I continued quickly, before my common sense woke up. We need a story, a timeline, details that match perfectly. If we're going to convince a court, we need to convince everyone, your family, your friends, everyone. This has to be airtight. Yes, anything, whatever you need. And after the hearing, we end this cleanly. No mess, no drama. We go back to being strangers. I promise. I stood up, smoothing down my dress, trying to look like someone who had just agreed to commit fraud for a one-night stand from her past. One more thing, I said at the door. If I'm going to do this, if I'm going to stand in a courtroom and lie to a judge, I need to meet her first. Kunle blinked. Meet who? Your daughter, Kemi. My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. If I'm going to fight for her, I need to know who I'm fighting for. The playground in Ikoyi was mostly empty on a Wednesday afternoon. Kunle had explained that his current custody arrangement gave him Wednesdays and every other weekend, hours that Folake's lawyers would twist into proof he was barely present in Kemi's life. I sat on a bench, sweat pooling under my blouse in the afternoon heat, wondering what temporary insanity had possessed me to agree to this scheme. Then I saw them. Kunle was holding Kemi's hand as they walked toward the playground, pointing at something in the trees. The little girl was laughing, jumping up and down, her pink dress bouncing with each excited hope. Her light-up sneakers flashed with every step, and her hair was perfectly styled in 2 puffs with those butterfly clips from the photo. Something in my chest cracked open. Kemi, come meet my friend, Kunle said gently as they approached. The little girl looked up at me with eyes too wise for someone so small, assessing me with a seriousness that made me nervous. Then she smiled. You're pretty. I like your earrings. I touched my small gold hoops self-consciously. Thank you, sweetheart. I like your shoes. Do they always light up like that? Only when I jump, Kemi demonstrated enthusiastically, and I found myself laughing. A real laugh, not the polite one I used at work meetings. Can you push me on the swing? She grabbed my hand with a kind of complete trust that felt dangerous, like I was being handed something fragile and irreplaceable. Of course. For the next 30 minutes, I pushed Kemi on the swing, helped her across the monkey bars, and listened to a very detailed explanation of why purple was the best color, even though pink was also extremely good, and sometimes she couldn't choose between them. Kule watched from the side, something unreadable flickering across his face. Hiya, Kemi squealed from the swing. Make me fly. Hold on, little bird, I said, pushing harder, and her laughter filled the playground, pure and uncomplicated and beautiful. When it was time to go, Kemi wrapped her small arms around my legs in a tight hug. Will you come play again? I looked at Kunle, then back at those hopeful eyes. and felt the trap closing around my heart. Yes, I said softly, I'll come play again. In Kunle's car afterwards, his hands were tight on the steering wheel, knuckles white. She liked you. Kemi doesn't usually warm up to new people. Not since the divorce. She's amazing, I said, and meant it with every fiber of my being. She is. His voice was thick with emotion. Zara, I need you to understand something. I'm not a perfect father. I work too much sometimes. I let her eat ice cream for breakfast when I'm too tired to fight. But I love that little girl more than I've ever loved anything in my life. And if Folake gets full custody, he couldn't finish the sentence. I reached over and squeezed his arm once, briefly. We won't let that happen. The we slipped out so easily, too easily. The story we built over the next week was simple. We'd reconnected 6 months ago at a mutual friend's wedding, started dating slowly, carefully, fell in love, we're planning a future. It needs to feel real, Kone said during our third planning session at his apartment in Banana Island. Legal documents were spread across his dining table. Custody petitions, character references, Folaki's accusations typed in cold, brutal legalities. I read one line and felt physically sick. The father is incapable of providing emotional stability or modeling healthy relationships for the child.
We need details, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. The kind of things couples know about each other. Your lawyer will prep us, but Folaki's team will ask questions designed to trip us up. So we interviewed each other like we were studying for the most important exam of our lives. Favorite foods, childhood memories, pet peeves, secret fears, dreams we'd never told anyone. Kunle learnt that I was terrified of birds after being chased by a goose as a child, that I had a scar on my knee from falling off my bike at age 7, that I secretly wanted to learn how to paint but was too afraid of being bad at something. I learned that Kunle's wonder had died when he was 15, that he'd built his tech startup from nothing while grieving, that he still slept with a nightlight on because Kemi was afraid of the dark and it made her feel better when she stayed over. The information should have felt clinical, tactical, like memorizing lines for a play. Instead, it felt intimate in a way that made my skin tingle. What happened with Folaki? I asked one evening, wine making me brave enough to ask what I'd been wondering. Why did the marriage end? Kunle was quiet for a long time, staring into his own glass. I married her too fast. We were young, she got pregnant, we did what we thought we were supposed to do. Traditional family pressure, But we never actually knew each other. Not really. Not the way you should know someone before you promise them forever. He looked at me with something raw in his eyes. When things got hard, when the business struggled and money was tight and we had a screaming baby, we realized we'd built a house on sand. The divorce was mutual, or I thought it was, until she met someone new, some businessman her family approves of, and decided Kemi deserved a better family than the one I could give her. You're her father. You are her family. Try telling that to a family court judge when your ex-wife's new boyfriend has a family compound in Abuja and political connections, and you're barely keeping your startup afloat. I set down my wine glass with more force than necessary. We'll make them see the real you, the father who memorizes butterfly facts and buys light-up sneakers and keeps a nightlight on for his daughter. Kunle looked at me like I'd handed him oxygen when he was drowning. Why are you really doing this, Zara? Not the reason you told yourself when you agreed. The real reason. I didn't have an answer. Or I did, and it terrified me too much to say it out loud. The first family event was Kunle's Aunt Bimpe's birthday party in Surile. I wore a dress Kunle had insisted on buying. We need to look like a couple who coordinate our outfits, he'd said, and spent the entire drive memorizing names, relationships, and the story with rehearse until it almost felt true. Remember, Aunt Pimpe is the one who raised me after my mom died. She's protective, observant, and she doesn't miss anything. If she doesn't believe us, no one else will either. No pressure then, I muttered, anxiety twisting my stomach. But when we walked through the door, Kunle's hand found the small of my back, and the gesture felt so natural, so right, that I almost forgot we were performing. Aunt Pimpe was a force of nature. 60-something years of wisdom packed into a woman wearing a gele that seemed to defy the laws of physics, her eyes sharp as a hawk's. So, this is the girl who finally got my Kunle to smile again. She pulled me into a hug that smelled of coconut oil and lavender and home. Let me look at you properly. She held me at arm's length, studying my face with unnerving intensity. Pretty face, yes, but are you kind? Pretty fades, my dear. Kindness is what lasts. I tried to be, honestly, because lying to this woman felt impossible. She is, Kunle said quietly, his hand still warm on my back. The certainty in his voice made my throat tight with emotion I couldn't name. The party was overwhelming. Cousins, uncles, and family friends all asking questions, making jokes, offering unsolicited relationship advice. Kunle stayed close to me the entire time, his hand always somewhere reassuring. My back, my elbow, our fingers intertwined when we sat down for food. And somewhere between the jollof rice and the fried plantain and the questions about when we were getting married, I stopped noticing his touch as performance. It just was natural, right, like his hand had always belonged there. You two make a beautiful couple, Aunt Pimpe said later, pulling me aside into the kitchen while Kunle was cornered by his cousins. I see how he looks at you, like you hung the moon and stars just for him. I haven't seen that light in his eyes since before everything fell apart with Fulaki. Guilt crushed over me in waves. Thank you, Ma. And you love him too. I can see it clear as day. The way you soften when he speaks, the way you reach for him without even thinking about it. Hold on to that love, my dear. What you two have is rare. Don't let anything destroy it. I couldn't speak, couldn't correct her, because somewhere between the lies and the rehearsed stories, something real had started growing, and I didn't know how to stop it. In the car, driving home, neither of us spoke for a long time. The silence felt heavy with all the things we couldn't say. You were perfect tonight, Conley said. Rough till perfect. Auntie Bimpe completely bought everything we said. She thinks we're in love, Zara. I know. My heart was racing. Conley, we should practice more, spend more time together before the hearing, make everything even more convincing. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. 2 weeks left. We need to be absolutely seamless. Okay. So we spent more time together. Dinners at his place that felt less like rehearsals and more like dates. Movies on his couch where we forgot to maintain appropriate distance. Play dates with Kemi, who had started asking when Auntie Zara was coming before I even arrived. And every time Kunle's hand brushed mine, every time he laughed at something I said, every time Kemi climbed into my lap and called me Auntie Zara with that gap-toothed smile, the lines between real and pretend blurred a little more, until I couldn't tell the difference anymore. Auntie Zara, can you help me with my drawing? It was a Sunday afternoon and Kemi was sprawled on Kunle's living room floor, crayons scattered everywhere at a rainbow explosion, working on something with the kind of intense concentration only children possess. Kunle was in the kitchen making lunch, a ritual that had somehow become ours over the past 10 days. The domesticity of it should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like coming home. I sat down on the floor beside Kemi. What are we drawing, little bird? My family, she pointed to the stick figures with serious pride. That's Daddy, he's very tall. That's Mommy, she lives in a different house now because sometimes grown-ups stop being married. And that's Mommy's friend Uncle David. I don't like him very much. He smells like cigarettes and he's always on his phone. My chest tightened with protective anger for this little girl navigating adult complexities. That's a beautiful family, Kemi. Wait, I'm not finished yet, she paused. Grabbed a purple crayon, her favorite, and drew another figure, smaller, standing right next to Kunle's stick figure, their hands touching. This is you. Time stopped. My heart stopped. Everything stopped. Kemi, sweetheart, you're in my family now, she said matter-of-factly, like it was an obvious truth. Because you make daddy smile the way he used to before he was sad, and you play with me, and you're nice, and you don't smell like cigarettes. She looked at me with those devastating eyes that were too much like his feathers. Can you stay in my family, please? I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but pull this precious child into a hug and fight back the tears burning behind my eyes. From the kitchen doorway, I heard something crash. Looked up to see Kunle standing there, frozen, a broken glass at his feet, staring at us with an expression that looked like pain and hope and fear, all twisted together into something unbearable. That night, after Kemi had fallen asleep on the couch between us during a movie, after Kunle had carried her to his bedroom and I tucked her in with a tenderness that felt dangerous, we stood in the hallway outside her door and faced each other. The air between us was charged with everything we couldn't see. She drew you into her family, Kunle said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. I know. Zara, I need to tell you something. Don't. I backed away, hands up, like I could physically hold back whatever confession was about to shatter our careful arrangement. Behaving is in 4 days, I whispered, my voice shaking. We need to stay focused, and that's what matters. Winning custody for Kemi. And after the hearing, what happens to us, Kunle said. There is no us, Zara. There can't be.
Why not? Because this isn't real. The words came out louder than I intended. Desperate. We built this on lies, on pretending. You don't actually know me. I don't actually know you. We're strangers playing dress up. And when the game ends, you're not a stranger. His hand caught my wrist, gentle but insistent. I know you take your coffee with too much sugar. I know you are afraid of birds and failure in equal measure. I know you cry during children's movies and pretend you don't. I know you gave up everything that made you feel safe to help someone you had every reason to forget. That's not a stranger, Zara. That's someone I... Don't say it. Please don't say it. But his eyes said it anyway. Said everything we were both too terrified to voice. I should go. I pulled free, grabbing my bag with shaking hands, moving toward the door before I could do something catastrophically stupid, like stay. Like admit that I had fallen in love with his daughter, like admit I was falling for him too. At the door, he caught up to me. You're not a stranger, but I'm terrified too, Zara. But what if this is the realest thing either of us has ever done? What if we're both just too afraid to admit it? I couldn't look at him. If I looked at him, I'd break. Good night, Kunle. I made it to my car before the tears came, hot and angry and full of everything I couldn't let myself feel. The custody hearing was held in a grey government building in Ikeja, all fluorescent lights and echoing hallways that smelled like floor polish and broken families. I wore a conservative navy dress and pearls. Kole's lawyer had advised professional, maternal, put together, but not flashy. I felt like I was wearing a costume for the most important performance of my life. Folake arrived with her legal team and the new boyfriend, David, a man in an expensive suit who looked like he'd never had a hair out of place in his life. Folake herself was stunning in traditional attire, every inch the respectable family woman the court would find sympathetic. When she saw me holding Kunle's hand in the hallway, something sharp and calculating flashed in her eyes. So, this is the new girlfriend, Folake said, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. How convenient. 6 months of dating, is it? Right before a custody hearing? Folake, please, Kunle started. Don't. She looked at me with something that might have been pity.
Did he tell you how many girlfriends he's introduced Kimi to in the past year? How many aunties have come and gone from my daughter's life? My blood ran cold. I looked at Colin. What is she talking about? It's not, she's twisting things. There was Rebecca, then what was her name? Tolu, and that girl from his office, Jennifer. Kemi got attached every single time, and every time they left. My daughter has abandonment issues because her father can't keep a relationship stable for more than a few weeks. That's not fair, Conle said, his voice shaking with anger and something that might have been shame. We weren't serious. Exactly my point. Folake's lawyer, a sharp-eyed man in a suit that probably costs more than my monthly rent, smiled coldly. Your Honor will hear all about the defendant's pattern of unstable relationships and how it's actively damaging the child's emotional development. Inside the courtroom, my hands were ice despite the humid Lagos heat. I sat in the gallery while lawyers argued and presented evidence, their voices blending into white noise as my heart hammered against my ribs. Folake's team was ruthless. They painted Kunle as a workaholic who prioritized his struggling business over his daughter, who missed pickups because of meetings, who was late with child support payments twice in the past year, who paraded a rotating door of female companions through Kimi's life like she was trying on different mothers. Kunle's lawyer fought back, showing proof of quality time, presenting Kemi's drawings of her father, character references from Auntie Bimpe, and colleagues who vouched for his dedication. But it felt like throwing pebbles at a concrete wall. Folake had money, connections, a stable new relationship, a picture-perfect narrative. Then came the moment I'd been dreading since I agreed to this insane plan. I'd like to call Miss Zara Thompson to the stand. My legs barely held me as I walked to the witness box. I placed my trembling hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, knowing I was about to commit perjury in a court of law. Conle's lawyer started gently. How long had we been dating? 6 months. How did we meet? Through mutual friends at a wedding. How would you describe our relationship? We're partners, I said, and the word didn't feel like a complete lie. We support each other. He's shown me what it means to put someone else first, the way he put Kemi first every single day of his life. And have you spent time with the child? Yes, Kemi is... My voice caught with genuine emotion. She's extraordinary, bright and funny, and so full of love and imagination. She deserves parents who will fight for her happiness above everything else. Then, Folake's lawyer stood up, adjusting his expensive tie, and I knew this was where everything would fall apart. Miss Thompson, you say you've been in a romantic relationship with Mr. Adeyemi for 6 months, is that correct? Yes. How many times has his daughter slept overnight in your residence? I blinked, caught off guard. None. We thought it was too soon to. But not so soon to stand in a courtroom and advocate for her custody. The lawyer's smile was predatory. Interesting. Tell me, what's Kemi's favorite food? My mind went blank. Pure panic. I looked at Kunle, whose face had gone pale. Spaghetti, remembering a video Kunle had shown me weeks ago, with a lot of butter, no sauce. She doesn't like red sauce. Interesting. And what about her allergies? Surely someone in a serious relationship planning a future would know about the child's medical needs. She's allergic to... I stopped. Did Kimi have allergies? Had Kule mentioned it in all our planning sessions? Why couldn't I remember something so basic? Take your time, the lawyer said, and every word sounded like a trap snapping shot. She doesn't have any food allergies, I said finally, praying to every god I could think of that I was right. Correct, but you hesitated. For someone who's planning to be a maternal figure in this child's life, that hesitation is quite concerning, don't you think? He paced slowly, letting the moment sink in. Miss Thompson, is it true that you and Mr. Adeyemi had a previous relationship before these supposed 6 months? The air left the room. I felt the walls closing in. What? No, that's not... You never met him before last year? Never spent time alone with him?
My heart was hammering so hard I thought everyone in the courtroom could hear it. We knew each other briefly years ago. We were acquaintances through mutual friends. Acquaintances. The padro pulled out a document and my stomach dropped through the floor. I have a sworn affidavit from a witness who saw you leaving a hotel together 4 years ago. The same night, early morning actually, around 4 a.m. Would you call that acquaintances? The courtroom erupted. Kunle was on his feet, his lawyer objecting loudly, the judge calling for order with her gavel. This is character assassination, Your Honor, Kunle's lawyer shouted. This is establishing a clear pattern of deception, Falaki's lawyer shot back smoothly. The defendant fabricated an entire relationship to appear stable and committed to this court. It calls into question everything he's presented. Everything happened too fast after that. The judge called for a recess. Kunle pulled me into a hallway, both of us shaking like leaves in a storm. How did they find out? My voice was hollow, empty. How did they know about that night? I don't know. Someone from the party must have... I don't know, Zara. God, I'm so sorry. I never meant for you to be attacked like this. This is over. I could barely get the words out past the panic closing my throat. We're done. They know we're lying. They know everything. Please, we can still... I just committed perjury for you. The words came out sharper than I meant, but I couldn't stop. You stood in front of a judge and lied under oath. And now they are going to use this to destroy you in court, and Kemi is the one who's going to pay the price. Because of me. Because I agreed to this insane plan. Zara, please, I can't do this. The tears were coming now, hot and unstoppable. I can't stand there and watch them take her away from you because we lied. I can't. I walked away before he could see me completely fall apart, before I could do something even more stupid than I'd already done. The judge's chambers were austere and cold, all dark wood and law books and the weight of 1,000 broken families. I'd been called in alone, which meant this was either very good or very bad. Judge Adeleke was a woman in her 60s with kind eyes that have seen every lie humanity had to offer and no patience for nonsense. Ms. Thompson, I'm going to ask you some questions off the record, and I need honest answers this time. Do you understand? I nodded, too drained to do anything but tell the truth. Are you in love with Kunle Adeyemi? The question hit like a physical blow, knocking what little air I had left out of my lungs. Yes, Your Honor, I am. And the relationship, it didn't really start 6 months ago, did it? No, ma. Tell me what actually happened. All of it. The truth.
So I did. Every shameful detail. The one-night stand 4 years ago that was supposed to mean nothing. The desperate 2 a.m. text message 3 weeks ago from a man I thought I'd never see again. The insane custody hearing scheme. Meeting Kemi and feeling my carefully constructed walls crumble. Falling in love with them both, despite every defense I'd built around my heart. I know it was wrong. I finished, my voice breaking completely. I know I lied to this court and I'm ready to accept whatever consequences come from that. But please, Your Honor, I'm begging you, don't punish Kemi for what we did. She's innocent in all of this. She just wants her father. She deserves to have her father in her life. Judge Adeleke was quiet for what felt like an eternity, studying me with those eyes that saw everything. I've been presiding over family court for 23 years, Miss Thompson. You know what I've learned in all that time? She leaned back in her chair. Love is messy. Family is complicated. And sometimes the truth is stranger and more beautiful than any lie we could invent. I looked up, hardly daring to hope. I'm not going to hold you in contempt of court. I'm not going to use your testimony against Mr. Adeyemi, Your Honor, but I am going to ask you one more question, and I need you to think very carefully before you answer. She leaned forward, her gaze intense. If I grant primary custody to the mother, if Mr. Adeyemi only gets supervised visitation,
Will you walk away from this child, or will you fight for her anyway, regardless of what happens between you and her father? I thought about Kemi's drawings with me and her family, her laughter on the playground, the way she'd asked me to stay with complete trust that I would. I'd fight, I said quietly, meaning it with every cell in my body. However I could, whatever she needed, even if Kunle and I don't work out as a couple, even if he never wants to see me again after what I've done, I'd fight for her. Why? Because I love her, because she asked me to stay in her family and nobody's ever... My voice broke. Because she deserves someone who chooses her. Not because they caught other date or because it's convenient, but because she's worth choosing. Because she's Kemi and she's extraordinary and she deserves the whole world. George Adeleke's expression softened almost imperceptibly. That's what I needed to hear. She stood, signaling the conversation was over. Court resumes in 30 minutes. I suggest you compose yourself and prepare for my ruling. Back in the courtroom, I sat next to Kunle in silence, heavy with everything we couldn't see. Under the table, hidden from view, our hands found each other, fingers intertwining with desperate strength. "Whatever happens," he whispered, his thumb stroking the back of my hand. "Thank you for trying, for caring about her, for being brave enough to do this." I love her, Kunle. I really, truly love her. I know you do. Judge Adeleke took her seat and the room fell into tense silence. Every eye was on her. Folake was gripping David's hand, her face carefully neutral. Kunle's hand in mine was shaking. I reviewed all the evidence and testimony presented in this case. Both parents clearly love the child and want what's best for her. Both have strengths and weaknesses as parents, as all parents do. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. But this court is not interested in perfection. We're interested in the child's welfare and best interests. And that means looking at who this child has bonded with, who shows up for her consistently, and yes, who can provide emotional stability and a loving environment. Folake stood up straighter, confident. "Mrs. Adewale, your concerns about Mr. Adeyemi's past relationships are noted. Your desire to provide a stable two-parent household is commendable." Judge Adeleke's gaze shifted. "However, I am more concerned with the present and future than the past. Ms. Thompson's testimony today, despite its unconventional beginning, showed me something important. The capacity for genuine love and commitment. The willingness to fight for a child who is not biologically hers. That kind of selfless devotion is rare." I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Therefore, I am ruling to maintain the current joint custody arrangement. Mr. Adeyemi will continue to have custody on Wednesdays and alternating weekends. However, I fixed Kunle with a stern look that could have melted steel. I want to see consistency, stability, no more revolving door of romantic companions around this child. If you are building a relationship with Miss Thompson or anyone else, commit to it properly. If you are not certain, keep it away from your daughter until you are. Do I make myself clear? "Yes, Your Honor. Crystal clear," Kunle said, his voice thick with relief and unshed tears. "And Miss Thompson?" The judge looked directly at me. "That child drew you into her family. She asked you to stay. If you're going to be in her life, be in it completely and permanently. Children remember who stays and who leaves. They remember who keeps their promises." "I understand, Your Honor. I won't let her down." "See that you don't." As we left the courthouse, the Lagos sun beating down mercilessly, Folake caught up with us in the parking lot. "Kunle, wait, please." We turned. She looked smaller somehow, less armored than she had in the courtroom. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, her voice barely audible over the traffic noise, "for what my lawyers did in there to both of you. That was too far. I let my anger and fear turn me into someone I don't want to be. Why did you do all this? Kunle asked, the heart clear in his voice. We had an agreement. Shared custody was working fine. Why did you suddenly decide I wasn't good enough? Fulake's eyes filled with tears that she quickly blinked away. Because I was scared. David wants to get married, wants to move to Abuja for a business opportunity, start fresh. And I thought Kemi deserved a complete family. 2 parents in one house. The perfect picture. But I watched you in that courtroom today, Miss Thompson. The way you talked about my daughter. You really do love her, don't you? More than I knew I could love anyone, I said honestly. Then maybe she already has what I was trying to force. Maybe family doesn't have to look perfect to be real. Folake wiped her eyes. Can we start over? For Kemi's sake. Co-parent properly this time, without lawyers and accusations. Kunle looked at me. I squeezed his hand. For Kemi? Kunle agreed. Always for Kemi. 3 weeks after the hearing, I was at Kunle's apartment on a Sunday afternoon, helping Kemi with a school project about families. So, I can draw everyone? Kemi asked for the 3rd time, wanting to make sure absolutely right. Everyone who's important to you, I confirmed. Kemi drew with the fierce concentration only a 3-year-old possessed. Kunle and Folake in separate houses, David in one house, me in the other. Auntie Bimpe got her own special drawing because she makes the best puff-puff in the whole world. She even drew her teacher and her best friend from school. My family is really big now, she announced proudly, showing us her masterpiece. Most kids only have a few people, but I have lots. You are very lucky, I said, my heart full to bursting. Later, after Kemi had been picked up by Folake for her time, after the apartment had gone quiet, Kunle and I sat on Kunle's balcony overlooking the Lagos skyline as it transformed from day to evening, lights beginning to twinkle in the growing darkness. The question that had been hanging between us for weeks finally surfaced. What are we doing, Zara? Kunle asked, softly, as his hand found mine on the armrest between our chairs. I don't know, I admitted, fear and hope warring in my chest. This was supposed to be temporary, fake, an arrangement to get through a custody hearing. But it's not anymore. It hasn't been for a while. No, I said, turning to face him in the dimming light. And that terrifies me, Kunle. What if we try this for real and it doesn't work? What if we hurt each other? What if we hurt Kemi? What if it does work? His thumb traced my palm, sending shivers up my arm. What if that night 4 years ago was not a mistake? What if it was just terrible timing and this now is the universe giving us a second chance to get it right? I don't believe in fate or the universe or any of that. Neither did I. Then I met you twice. Once when I needed to forget everything. Once when I needed to save everything. And the second time, you saved my daughter. You saved me. He brushed a tear from my cheek with infinite gentleness. I'm not asking you to be setting apart forever. I'm just asking you to try, really try. Not as a performance or a favor, but as us, as whatever we're becoming. I thought about Kemi's drawing with me included in her family, about being chosen, about love that asks you to stay instead of preparing for you to leave. Okay, I whispered, the word carrying the weight of everything I was risking.
Let's try, let's be real. He kissed me then, soft and terrified and hopeful all at once, tasting like possibility and second chances. And for the first time in 4 years, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, some mistakes were really just beginnings in disguise. 6 months later, Kemi's kindergarten was having a Mother's Day celebration. The invitation specifically said, bring your mom or a special woman in your life. Kemi had made 2 cards with the intensity she brought to everything. One for Folake, one for me. I stood at the back of the classroom watching Kemi present her first card to Folake. They hugged tight, Folake crying happy tears as other mothers dabbed their eyes.
Then Kemi ran across the room to me, holding out the second card with a purple butterfly on the front, my favorite now, because it was hers. "This one is for you," she said solemnly, "because you are my special person. You chose me when you didn't have to." I knelt down, pulled her into a hug, and let the tears come freely. "I'll always choose you, little bird. Always and always." From across the room, Kunle was watching with Folake beside him, and both of them were smiling. Not a perfect family, not a traditional family, but family nonetheless. Messy and complicated and real. That evening, we all had dinner together. Kunle, Kemi, Folake, David, and me. It had become a monthly tradition, these dinners, where we proved that love could stretch and bend and make room for more people than a traditional blueprint allowed. I told Sophia at school that I have 2 houses and 4 parents, Kemi announced proudly over her spaghetti. She said that's weird, but I said it's actually very cool. "Very cool," David laughed, and I learned under the expensive suits he was actually kind and genuinely good with Kemi. "Yes, because most kids only get love from 2 people. I get it from 4. That's double love. Actually, if you count Auntie Bimpe, it's 5. That's more than double." After dinner, after Folake and David had taken Kemi home for her school night, Kunle and I stood in his kitchen washing dishes, a ritual that had become sacred somehow, a quiet space where we could just be. She's right, about the love, about how lucky she is. I know. He set down the dish he was washing, turned to face me with water still dripping from his hands. "I love you, Zara. Really, truly, completely love you. Not because you helped me keep my daughter, not because you are good with Kemi, but because you are you. Because you chose us when you had every reason to run. Because you turned a lie into the most honest thing in my life." I set down my dish towel, turned to face him fully. "I love you too. And it still scares me sometimes how much, how fast, how completely. I never wanted to be someone's partner. I never wanted kids or family complications or any of this." I gestured around the kitchen at the life we'd built from lies and desperation. "And now?" he asked. "Now, I can't imagine a life that doesn't include a little girl who draws me into her family and a man who taught me that love doesn't have to be perfect to be worth everything." He kissed me then, soapy hands and all, tasting like home. Then he pulled back slightly, his eyes serious. "Marry me." My heart stopped. What? Not today, not tomorrow, but someday when you are ready, when Kemi is ready, when this stops feeling like a miracle and starts feeling like just our life. Marry me. Make this real in every possible way. I thought about the woman I'd been 4 years ago, running from anything that looked like forever. I thought about who I'd become, someone who washed dishes and went to kindergarten Mother's Day celebrations and loved a child that wasn't biologically hers with a fierceness that sometimes took her breath away. "Ask me again," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Someday, when the moment feels right. And I promise you, Kuniadeni, I will say yes." We stood there in his kitchen, holding each other while water ran in the sink and Lagos breathed and lived outside the windows. Somewhere across the city, a little girl was falling asleep with 2 Mother's Day cards on her nightstand, secure in the knowledge that she was loved by more people than she could count on one hand. Kunle's phone buzzed. A text from Kemi, sent from Folake's phone with her permission. "Good night, Daddy. Good night, Auntie Zara. I love you both so, so, so much." And then, a moment later, another message that made us both laugh and cry at the same time. "When is Auntie Zara going to be Mommy Zara? I want to tell Sophie at school." We looked at each other, and the laughter that bubbled up was pure joy, mixed with the beautiful terror of loving someone so much you do anything to keep them safe and happy. "Soon, little bird," I whispered to the phone screen, meaning it with my whole heart. Because that's what love is, I learned. Not the perfect fairy tale with the right timing and the clean story,
but the messy, complicated, beautiful choice to show up every day for people who've seen you at your worst and decided you are worth keeping anyway. We'd started with a lie told in a courtroom. We'd built something real from a foundation of desperation and pretending. And maybe that was the most honest truth of all, that sometimes the best families are the ones we choose, the ones we fight for, the ones we build from nothing but hope and love and the willingness to try. 3 years later, at our wedding, a small ceremony with just family and close friends, Kemi would be our flower girl, wearing a purple dress because it was still her favorite color. She would tell everyone who'd listen that she had known from the beginning that Auntie Zara would become Mommy Zara, that she had drawn it into existence with purple crayons and belief. And watching her dance at our reception, splitting time between Kunle's arms and mine, and Folake's and David's, surrounded by love from every direction, I would finally understand what it meant to be chosen and to choose back. But that was still ahead of us. For now, in this moment, we were just 2 people who'd found each other twice, once by accident, once on purpose, learning that sometimes the best love stories are the ones that start with terrible timing and end with perfect truth. Thank you so much for watching. What did you learn from this story? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.